Okay, there we go. So anyways, three P's of parking, three P's of property management: parking, pools, and poop. Parking, again, if their streets are public in your community, you're going to have a lot less that the association can enforce. Okay. Typically speaking, the county would have to get involved more times than not if the streets are public. Really all the county at the end of the day or the city care about is being able to have emergency vehicles get through on the streets to get to a home in the event that there's an emergency. So again, it just depends on how wide the roads are, right? It just depends. Again, there's not a whole lot that an association can do as it relates to towing on public streets. However, if your streets are private, which typically, again, speaking in a general way, if your community is gated, typically speaking, your streets are going to be private. Typically condominium associations, and sometimes town associations, depending on it. A lot of times you will find that even without a gate, sometimes those streets are actually private versus public. And what does that actually mean? If your streets are public, that means the association is not responsible for the maintenance of the streets. If the streets are public, that means that if the streets are private, that means that the association is responsible for the maintenance of the streets, meaning, you have to seal coat them every so often. Sometimes they have to be completely repaved. You would know if your streets are private or public. Also, if your streets are public, you do not have to worry about fire hydrant testing. If your streets are private, you do have to worry about fire hydrant testing. So, there's all these little things that have to do regarding streets being private or public. But again, in a public community where the streets are public, associations really don't have a whole lot that they can do as it relates to enforcing vehicles to be moved. Now, if your governing documents specifically state provisions and your use restrictions as it relates to parking, we can, as a management company, can send out violation letters to offenders, right? Maybe we can find them, maybe we can't. It just depends on, again, the language in the governing documents. There are some communities that will specifically state, that a car can be parked on the street, but it can't be parked for more than 24 hours. But the problem with that is, how do you know? Is somebody standing there watching the car for 24 hours to make sure it doesn't move? Like, who is actually a witness to saying that owner doesn't get out at 2:00 in the morning and drive around the street and come back? So again, it's very tricky as it relates to public streets and what you can and can't do with enforcing parking. The best thing to do is to communicate with the membership. And one of my biggest pet peeves is driving down the road and having cars parked in the opposite direction of the flow of traffic, right? That's very dangerous. And the problem with having too many cars parked in the street is it can create safety issues, right? It can be an easier target for an accident, or somebody to get hurt, or a child to walk out behind a car and the car comes down the road and somebody gets hit, God forbid. So again, there are safety issues as it relates to street parking and why it is so important to monitor, and really just communication with your membership as to why we're trying to avoid the street parking. And, the best thing I can do also is that you guys have to be flexible, right, with your membership. There's going to be people that come into town, right, that are going to be visiting company. I know a lot of communities that have private streets. You'll see a lot of language in the governing documents that talks about how the community association, you have to use your garage to park. Okay. Your garage is used for parking and your driveway is used for overflow parking. Okay. Meaning if you have a 2-car garage and you have a driveway, you essentially have 4 parking spots on your lot, 2 in your garage and 2 in your driveway. And maybe even more in your driveway, depending on how long your driveway is or how wide it is. But technically speaking, in those situations, what is expected of the owner is they have to essentially, if you have 4 vehicles, they should all be parked within the garage, with the garages and within the driveway. And what you're doing is you're basically rotating cars all day long. I mean, I get it. I have 2 kids. We have 4 vehicles at our home because I have 2 teenage drivers. And so you have to do a lot of rotating of cars in and out of the driveway, in and out of the garage. But a lot of people don't realize that their garage, really the intended purpose of their garage is not used for storage. It's supposed to be used for parking. But again, you got to look at the governing documents. Like I said, a lot of communities where the streets are private, you'll see language specific to the parking about that. But again, be flexible with your membership, but also make sure you're communicating with them the importance of why we have to restrict parking. It's very hard to daily fine for somebody that's parking unless somebody knows that the parking, that person has not moved their spot. And so, so every so often. So typically it's an occurrence fine when people start to get fined for a parking violation. Best case scenario, you have a private road community, and the association has the right to tow vehicles if they are parked in the street. Again, check your governing document language, but if the association has private roads, typically if the association has towing signs up, this is very important. In Georgia, you have to have towing signs up to indicate where vehicles are being towed in your property, in your community, typically somewhere near the entrance where everybody can see it. And you also have to have a towing agreement with a towing contractor. So your management company is able to help you engage with a towing vendor. You would have to enter into a contract with the towing vendor, and then you would get towing signs to put up. You have to have towing signs up. You cannot tow without towing signs up, and a towing company will not put a sign up unless you have a contract with them. That basically lets the offenders know that if their vehicles are towed, where they've been towed to. So again, it's great when communities have that, but it is also on the emphasis is on the parking committee or the board to place parking stickers. You have to place parking stickers on the vehicles before they can be towed. So it's very important to know that. A lot of people think that it's the management company's job to go around and to sticker these vehicles. In most cases, if it's a shared service, if you have portfolio management with any management company out there, typically the manager or the management company is only on site once a month maximum. Again, in most cases, they're not going to be able to come out there every single time there's a parking violation and sticker a car. So you guys have those conversations with the board. If you have private streets and you have the ability to tow, you have a tow contract in place and you have towing signs up. Those are the best case scenarios. I also have a lot of community associations that work with off-duty police officers. There are a lot of off-duty police officers that provide a daily drive-through of the community, and they will put real tickets on vehicles that are illegally parked. They can do that because they are police officers. So that's another option for a lot of communities. A lot of communities love it. They pay for it. It is quite an expensive service, but I can tell you it eliminates the parking situations. When people start getting tickets and they have to actually start paying the tickets, it's very funny how quick the parking issues seem to disappear. Fortunately, it's one of those things you have to stay on top of it and you have to continue to do it. You might get a community whipped into shape after 2 or 3 months of having a off-duty police officer come in and drive the community and do ticketing for anybody that's illegally parked. But after some time of not doing it, it's funny how people kind of fall back into old habits. So again, I have a lot of communities that love that service. If you guys are looking for that service and you'd like a quote, please don't hesitate to let your manager know that you'd like to get a quote. But you're probably looking at anywhere from a size of about 100 to 200 units. You're probably looking at about a $2,000 a month expense. So on just kind of give ball for something if you know that your community is not going to spend that money on that expense. So that's parking. I want to talk about dog poop, right? I mean, I can't even tell you guys, we get videos, I kid you not, videos of people videoing their neighbors' dogs going to the bathroom in their yard or on common areas. Okay. Sometimes it's crazy to me. And the pictures of it all, like, listen, it's crazy, but I get it. I have animals. My neighbors have animals, and we're all luckily very respectful with one another. But it is the pet owner's responsibility to pick up after their pet. There are a lot, again, same thing with parking. There are a lot of, there's a lot of different language as it relates to pets in community associations. Some communities have very strict language as to what an owner can be fined for, or what they're responsible for as it relates to picking up after their pet. The biggest thing is proving it. Even a video sometimes can't be enough to actually prove that that an owner is in violation of not picking up after their pet. So very interesting enough. I would say, I don't know, maybe about 5-10 years ago, communities started to write in their governing documents, brand new communities started to write into their governing documents that homeowners' pets are required to have their pet DNA tested. Okay, and I'm not joking. There are companies out there that provide a pet DNA testing for the purposes of violating offenders, of people that are walking their dogs and not picking up after them. So what does that mean, right? So that means in their governing documents, it basically tells them that there's a registration fee that the association will charge the owner of a pet to have a pet live in their community, and they are required by the governing documents to have their pet DNA tested, and that DNA testing lives on file with the company that provides the pet DNA testing, and that company goes around periodically throughout the month and they actually pick up dog feces and they bring them back to their lab and they test them to determine whose pet it was that has violated the rule. And community associations can do that if it's written to the governing documents. I've also seen a lot of community associations, they have done the amendment for the pet DNA testing. Listen, if pets are a big issue in your community, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. The owners can be responsible for their own registration fee. And you guys can do it. You just have to get an amendment done. If your governing documents don't allow for pet DNA testing, you cannot make that happen. But the pet DNA testing is 100% proof when a violator has it. You have the proof of the actual sample and you have the DNA that matches the sample. And I can tell you again, just like with parking, when you have a police officer patrolling a neighborhood for parking violations and the ownership knows that they're going to get ticketed. Same thing in a community where there's pet DNA testing and the company comes in, several times a month and picks up dog samples. I can promise you, you have 0 to none. You have very little to no pet issues in a community like that, as it relates to picking up after your pets during the, any time of the year, really. Pets off of a leash are a totally different separate issue. Now, if some governing documents, again, are very vague about what you can and can't do. A lot of times, if their language isn't very strong to support a board wanting to send violation notices or fining an owner for pet issues, the best thing the association can do, unfortunately, is go right to animal control. Animal control in those situations have a lot more authority to take more action against the owner of the pet, right? It could be for not picking up after them, because again, different counties require their different laws regarding picking up after the pets, as well as the leash laws as well. So I always recommend if the governing documents language is very strong, or is not strong, or if they are just continuing to have issues with specific owners and their dog issues, the best thing to do in those situations is to involve animal control, because again, they can do a lot more enforceable action than what the association can do. So anyways, there we go about pets. Finally, my favorite topic of the year is pools. I remember a long time ago, I was speaking to a friend of mine, and I was working at a different management company, and I don't know, this was like 8 or 9 years ago, and it was pool season. It is pool season. We are in the middle of it. Okay. And I was she was trying to talk to me. She worked in the accounting department, and I said to her, I said, listen, I said, Cindy, I can't talk to you right now. It's pool season, right? Literally, managers right now are doing everything they can to help get pools open, get them open safely. Interesting enough, I just got an article today from one of my community association forums that I belong to, and it was actually talking about the pool staff shortages that I think everybody is experiencing. Staff, I know everybody is experiencing shortages everywhere. Every industry is suffering right now with staffing shortages and the labor and materials. And so it's no different for pool companies right now. So I know managers are working really hard. I did a webinar a few months back regarding just specifically pools. Kind of talked a little bit more about exactly what you would want to do to get your pool prepared to be opened. I think I did that webinar back in February, but should be posted to our website, myarden.com, under the webinar section. But I'm kind of going to give you guys another brief overview kind of the pool's situation and what really management companies are faced with as it relates to getting pools open. And the first thing I'm going to say to you guys is that it's really a group effort. Okay. Getting your pools open for pool season is really a group partnered effort between the board or a pool committee and the management company. Especially if it's a shared service and you don't have an on-site full-time manager. There are a lot of things that have to happen before a pool opens. There is pool phone line has to be working. Signage has to be placed properly, and every county requires different signage, and it has to be different. The sizing of the lettering has to be specific, number of inches, and there are very specific requirements for specific counties, but your pool vendor should know what those requirements are for each county. Making sure your signage is up, getting the pool cover off. The pool covers went off. I think most of them started to come off back in March, getting the pools cleaned up, vacuuming the pools, treating the pools. Some of them are going to need acid washes. Some might need to be replastered. They might pull the covers off and realize that the coat, the final coat on the pool resurface, the pool surface is actually starting to chip. So then in those cases, the pool has to be drained, and it's a lengthy process to get a pool resurfaced. But we're trying to get the pools open now. We have to figure out who's going to put the pool furniture out. Who's cleaning the bathrooms, who is making sure pool rules are posted, who is making sure that the communication to the membership is being sent out about when the pool's going to be open, and what the pool rules are. And also, you're going to want to make sure that you just always, I tell everybody this, always expect the unexpected when you're trying to open your pool. Always. Rule of thumb, always. Again, last year was really bad because back in 2020, during the summer of COVID, a lot of pools did not open. They just did not open at all in 2020. Then enter season 2021, last pool season, a lot of pools started to open, but a lot of those covers hadn't even come off in almost 2 years. So when they got the pool covers off, they realized that there were a lot of repairs needed. They started to run the pumps, and it had just been dormant for too long. And a lot of communities realized that they needed a lot of repairs that weren't expected. I think it's going a lot smoother this pool season because, again, a lot of pools did open last year. Most of them did open. And unfortunately, a lot of them got opened late because of a lot of repairs that were needed, unforeseen repairs. But like I said, expect the unexpected when you're getting your pool open. But start to think about, again, if your pool hasn't opened already, I think a lot of them are going to be opening up here coming up. Usually by Memorial Day weekend is when a lot of pools are opened by, if they haven't already opened by now. But remember, at the beginning of pool season, everybody is excited to use the pool. Everybody. I mean, our pool opened last week and it was packed. I mean, there were so many people there, and the pools get dirtier faster because there's more people using it. Typically, pool vendors are only contracted to come out 2, maybe 3 times a week. They're not coming out every single day. And so just remember, in the beginning of pool season, everybody wants to use the pool. You have to think about, turning off control access. If you have a control access gate to get into your pool and not just a key or a code, you can turn off fobs, those control access cards or those fobs for people that are delinquent. You know, one of the benefits of enjoying pool areas for community associations is you pay your dues. You have to pay your dues and you get to enjoy those common elements. If you don't pay your dues, you typically don't get to enjoy those privileges. So having a control access system in place is really important. It's really a great way to get people to pay on their assessments if they're delinquent. Having the key system or code system isn't as effective as having the control access entry. The other great thing about having control access entry for your pool is that if there's ever an incident at the pool, you're able to pull the data as to who entered the pool during specific times. So boards can see who is in the pool area if an incident happens, which they will happen. They will happen. That's the other thing you'll start to see, especially with kids getting out of school. I guarantee you, if you're in Cobb County, next week, everybody is early release. I think Fulton County might be as well. I think a lot of counties might be, in fact, but you're going to see kids starting to see them at the pool starting next week and by themselves without their parents. You might come into your pool and music might be blaring. You know, go ahead and start to set the expectations with your membership now. If your pools are already open, that, you know, again, the pool rules are going to be enforced. You must be a certain age to be at the pool by yourself. Without parents, somebody has to monitor this, right? So typically there's a pool committee that would be assigned the job of maybe monitoring the pool the first couple of weeks as it gets opened, especially during peak times when there's a lot of people at the pool, just to ensure that, you know, people are being safe and following the rules of the pool. Things will calm down. I always say typically by the 4th of July, things have calmed down. Everybody's gotten in to use the pool. People have gotten their dues paid that want to use the pool area. And things do really start to calm down with pools. Somebody asked me today, they were like, somebody, it was a brand new person that started at Ardent. They asked me, is it this much work to close a pool? And I said, no, it's not. It's very easy to close a pool. It's a lot easier. All we have to do is put a lock up on the gate so people can't get in. But there's a lot that goes into closing the pool as well, but definitely not as much work on the front end when you're trying to get a pool opened. But again, like I said, expect the unexpected with pools opening, be flexible. You know, you want everybody to enjoy the pool areas, but again, at the end of the day, you want people to follow the rules as well. And just know that there are going to be things that happen. I know a lot of communities are also about to do some socials at the pool. They might have some, like, you know, I know our community neighborhood is having the last day of school, after school, they're having pizza and ice cream come in for all the kids. And I know that there are some even communities out there that are doing adult socials on the weekends at the pool. You know, this is a time for everybody to enjoy the amenity areas, but just be flexible with people and make sure you are enforcing the rules and you are making sure that you're communicating with your membership the expectations and really what the consequences are if people do not follow the pool rules. Boards can, you know, being able to use the pool areas, and I'm going to kind of end our webinar with this tonight, being able to use the amenity areas is a privilege. A board can decide whether or not somebody can use the pool or not use the pool based on behavior or delinquencies. Boards can typically, again, unless the governing document states something different, boards can basically decide not to open the pool. You know, that's a lot of that happened in 2020 and even 2021 when some community pools still didn't open 2021. A lot of the membership wanted their money back for their assessments. The board does not have to open the pool. Homeowners still have a responsibility to pay their assessments. So again, I'll end it with this. Again, using the pool area is a privilege. And again, a community should be working together and realizing that the common area is owned by everybody, right? Your pool is owned by everybody in that community. And so just like you have a home and you take care of your home, everybody should be responsible for taking care of the pool area as well. It could be from closing down the umbrellas at night, to helping wheel the trash out to the curb, or if you see the trash at the curb and you know the trash has come, bringing it back inside. There's a lot of things that owners can do to help, little things like that. And I think that's really what sets apart a very successful and thriving membership versus one that may not be thriving as much, is the willingness of homeowners to work together with the board, again, to make their community the best place to live. Thank you guys so much for joining in my webinar tonight. And I hope you guys have a great weekend and happy Memorial Day weekend. Be safe out there and take care.